Good day, everyone. I am Rachel Agravante. Our group has opted to share with you about deductive teaching. So, deductive teaching is attributed to Aristotle, the ancient Greek philosopher, who expressed it in its perfect logical form, the syllogism. Later, this method was the protagonist of the reasoning of philosophers of the stature of Descartes, Spinoza, and Leibniz. It also served as the foundation for the composition of the scientific method, without which the contemporary notion of science would not exist. So why is deductive teaching important? Deductive teaching is also known as for deductive reasoning, is one of the most commonly used in our daily lives. It is fundamental for the formulation of certain types of logic, such as symbolic or propositional logic. In these types of logic lie the foundation of formal systems like the one that gave rise to computing. This is because mathematics uses deductive reasoning very often because its rules are fixed and immutable. A deductive approach to teaching language starts by giving learners rules, then examples, then practice. It is a teacher-centered approach to presenting new content or new lesson. This is compared with an inductive approach, which starts with examples and asks learners to find rules, and hence is more learner-centered. So example is the form and use of the third conditional is explained to learners. Then they have a gap fill exercise to complete, then prepare their own examples. So how do we apply deductive teaching in the classroom? Our group has prepared this deductive teaching pedagogical wheel, wherein you can see the first step is the introduction. So the deductive approach may be, please keep in mind that deductive approach may be suitable with lower level learners who need a clear base from which to begin with a new language item, or with learners who are accustomed to a more traditional approach and so who lack the training to find rules themselves. So as I've mentioned earlier, our group had prepared a pedagogical wheel focused on deductive teaching. So first is introduction. So the lesson starts with a review or drill. So that is how the teacher set the stage for learning. So the learners are tasked to enhance certain skills that are prerequisite to the next lesson. Then proceed to the introduction of concept and generalization to learners. So in here, teachers use different apps such as downloaded video from YouTube or other media, or sometimes they use a Mentimeter, wherein there is a statement that is being introduced by the teacher, followed by lesson development, where teachers model the expected learning outcomes by providing clear explanation and direct instructions and examples. So the third one is guided practice. Learners or pupils are engaged with specific examples and activities to support learning. Lessons are generally conducted in lecture form with minimal dialogue between educators or teachers and their learners. Okay, Teacher Jenny will continue the presentation.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. So let's now proceed to the next part or process of the deductive teaching method. So from guided practice, the teacher now goes to the closure part. All right, wherein the teacher bring the lesson to a conclusion. Okay, by highlighting what was covered. So in here, this may include the concepts and ideas tackled during the class discussion. Teachers may use generalization such as KW chart, 3-to-1 prompts, and others where students are asked to summarize what they learned and then use applications such as Mentimeter or Pear Deck. Then next one is the independent practice. So earlier on, we talked about the guided practice. After closure, students or the teacher will go on to an independent practice wherein he or she provides learning tasks that are independent of teacher assistance. So in here, after concepts are explained and modeled to the students, they can now be given a practice which they can answer on their own. So practices can be repetitive drills or reviews done using Kahoot or other game-based applications that allow students to practice the concept they have learned. All right. And the last process is the evaluation. So in here, the teacher assesses the progress of his or her students by providing formative or summative assessments in relation to the concept tackled. As you may have noticed now, most activities in a deductive approach are teacher-centered. It is because this strategy requires the presence of a teacher. That is why in this illustration, the teacher is at the center of the learning process because he or she is the one who controls the lesson and all information is from him or her. All right. So now let's move on to the advantages and disadvantages of deductive teaching. Deductive teaching helps students to solve problems quickly and efficiently. It is also easy to cover most of the materials through this method. So quick learning is encouraged as it is a short and time-saving technique. For example, in teaching mathematics, the solutions to problems require less time because of the pre-established formula. In addition, deductive teaching can be a more efficient method in the long run because it encourages students to memorize the rules and is beneficial for the practice and revision stage. However, there are many factors to consider when using this method because of its disadvantages. First, it does not help improve the student's reasoning. Sometimes beginners may find it tough to comprehend an abstract formula due to a lack of acquaintance with various concrete instances. So the method needs students to blindly memorize a lot of formula, which might make them feel overwhelmed. Because of this, they often tend to forget the formula or the concept. So eventually, memory is prioritized over understanding and intelligence in this method, in this teaching method. So given these advantages and disadvantages, when can the deductive method of teaching be useful? This can be a good teaching practice when teaching a difficult concept. And it is also helpful when students are highly motivated and they are being prepared for writing exams. So that's it for our presentation. Thank you for listening and God bless.